And here it is, the Kindle Scribe Generation 3 black and white with the Frontlight version. So last time we were checking out the Color Scribe, today we are checking out the black and white with Frontlight version, and much like the other one, there's a lot of information that basically overlaps. So if you haven't watched the other video, I'm going to go through some of the key information really quickly, but if you are interested in some of the more detailed stuff from the first look, you can check out the Kindle Color Scribe version. What are the main differences with the Gen 3 versus Gen 2 and Gen 1 of the Kindle Scribe? Well, we no longer have the asymmetrical design. We now have an 11-inch screen as opposed to 10.2 screen. We still have 300 ppi of the screen density, so that's a good thing. We have a completely new screen panel that Kindle has worked on to basically change and re-architecture the whole stack, all in a pursuit to try and minimize the distance of the surface to screen while keeping the front light and improving the front light as well, because they're trying and they understand that the presence of an invisible barrier creates a disconnect from immersion with the device. We've seen that to be very, very successfully implemented on the ColorSoft version, and the initial look here looks very, very good on the paper or the black and white version as well. It is now equipped with a quad core instead of a dual core. It is a little bit slimmer at 5.4 millimeters versus 5.8 millimeters for the previous Gen 1 and Gen 2. And it is actually considerably lighter than the previous versions at 400 grams versus 430-ish something grams. It comes in a variety of versions of how much storage you get, 1632 or 64. This is a 64 gigabyte version, and it doesn't have an SD card, so that's it. What storage you have, that's it. It's not expandable. While it has become thinner and lighter and more powerful, the price has increased, and it has increased actually quite a bit. So even the black and white version is now up by about $100 for the front lit version, so around $499 for a front lit version versus 399-ish equivalent that we've had for the Gen 2 and Gen 1, and they were frequently on sales. It is expected to also have the third variant, which is going to be black and white without the front light, and that one is going to come, I think, only in 16 gigabyte storage version, and that one is supposed to be around $429 or something like that. The 64 gig version is $549, so starts at $499, goes up to $549, and then if you add a cover and all that kind of stuff, it tends to get up there. So one of the advantages that Kindle Scribe had is now gone, and it's no longer, it's not just a question of the Color Soft being, you know, super expensive. It's actually the ordinary one, the black and white one, is also now an expensive prospect. As far as the overall design goes, well, it's the same as the Color Soft, except that it has white edge, and it has a black and white new screen. While there are certainly going to be users who are not appreciating the fact that we're going away from the asymmetrical design with one edge being wider, what I do really appreciate is that when they went symmetrical, they went truly symmetrical, which means both top, bottom, and left and right sides, all four sides are equal. So we don't have a tall chin here or a tall forehead or anything like that. Nope. It's all really equal, and that kind of lends itself to be a very nice thing, because you get a lot of screen real estate here and a very small footprint of a device overall. Combined with the lightness, the aluminum body that's back here, the minimalistic design that's really nice. I mean, you only have the power button and this really nice indentation here to kind of keep the pen. The pen attaches magnetically very nicely, and it holds the device easily. You can even dangle it. So, of course, it sticks to the device very well, like it did on the Color Soft. I also do appreciate the fact that we do have small rubber feet here, so that when the device is actually on a flat, hard surface, that it doesn't skid around. So that's a really good thing to see, especially on devices that have a metal aluminum kind of casing, which tends to be slippery. Why is it slippery here? Well, because this is not a flat surface, this is like a cloth, so the rubber feet can't do anything about that. Just a short interruption in this first impressions of the Kindle Scribe Gen 3. If you like the type of content that I bring to the table with the My Day Guide, there's a new version of My Daily Organizer. What's a My Daily Organizer? Well, it's a hyperlinked PDF file that helps you organize all of your yearly, quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily needs. However, this time it actually comes in a little bit more of a variety, something that you guys asked, because this time the brand new version of MDO comes in annual, fiscal, or academic type of a year organizing situation, so you can choose what range and what type of organizational needs are the best fit for you. And not only that, even though this is a black and white version, but if you have a color device and that's something that you want, this time, for the first time ever, MDO is coming out in selected palette of colors, and each of the colors is coming out in neutral and tinted variations, so you can choose like, hey, I like this type of a color, but I want just a little splash of it, choose a neutral one. If you want like go on full on and pump up the colors, well, choose the tinted one and go forth, or mix and match, one for personal organization, one for professional organization, or something like that. There's also a bunch of small and not so small optimizations and improvements across the whole document, all in the pursuit to make it run faster, be leaner, and actually bring you the best possible user experience that I am able to deliver. MDO has been running strong now since 2021, which is absolutely phenomenal. So thank you so much for the support. So I honestly believe that the current version of the MDO is the best one yet that I have been able to develop. So I'm quite proud of it. And it works perfectly on the Kindle Scribe Gen 3 on that beautiful new 11-inch screen. So if you want to support the independence of My Deep Guide and you like the work that I do, or you simply want a really good type of analog style planning organizer on your device, head on over to mydeepguide.com/shop and pick up your copy of MDO today. And now let's continue with the video. Amazon says about the Gen 3 the same stuff with the Color Soft applies here as well. So what are we to expect from this device? Well, they say that it should be about 40% faster when writing and turning pages. It features the new texture molded glass that is supposed to improve pen friction and make it feel like writing on paper. And while it does feel good, the original Kindle Scribe never felt bad. On the contrary, it actually felt really good. And if anything, this feels a little bit smoother than what we've had before. If we're talking about paper-like stuff, on Color Soft and on this one we have pretty much the exact same type of feel, and that, while it feels good, there's nothing really terrible about it, but if we're kind of comparing it to the previous gen, it's a bit of a step back from the paper-like type of scratchiness surface. So that is a little bit smoother, but that being said, it's not glassy, it's not hard or anything like that. On the contrary, it's very nice and pleasant, just not as papery as it used to be. Alongside the already mentioned quad-core CPU, as opposed to the dual-core that we've had before, we have that oxide display technology, which is there to provide even smoother, faster refresh rates and cleaner deghosting. And writing latency should be at around 12 milliseconds, which brings Kindle Scribe to the contemporary values that we have of the devices that are at the cream of the crop. So that quest for the new display and basically re-architectured stack to shrink the parallax and to virtually nothing. It, at least as far as the first impressions goes, it really works. I don't see any kind of distance and shade or from the distance overall, so it's quite an impressive thing to see that they managed to actually get like a full stack with touch and everything that's needed. Well, EMR goes underneath everything, but the Frontlight and everything is basically all there, but we don't have that really big distance, which is normally associated at around 1 millimeter, and the old Kindle Scribe Gen 1 and 2 had that. This one no longer has that. That leads me to a question which I'm really interested in, and is that's like, if this distance appears to be this small, and I'm going to be measuring it for the in-depth reviews, of course, but for now it's just simply a first impression, right? And it looks pretty good. But how is it going to be on the non-Frontlit version? That's the version that I'm really excited about, to be quite honest. Out of all of these three, I'm most excited about the non-Frontlit version of the Kindle Scribe, but that one is not available yet. We'll see. Might be quite an interesting thing to kind of experience if they manage to get it as close as Quaderno, for example, or Sony DPT and things like that. Software-wise, it's the same stuff as on the ColorSoft, so you get your AI-powered notebooks, search, and then generated summaries, handwriting to text conversion, direct document input from Google Drive and Microsoft OneDrive, active canvas in the documents, whether you hate it or don't, but it's there. So basically, software-wise, it's all exactly the same stuff as with the ColorSoft, and like with the ColorSoft and previous Kindles, nope, we do not have waterproofing. And that's pretty much it. Now let's proceed with the first power-up. And I'm going to just go through the onboarding process in an accelerated form here, simply because I've done the whole thing with the Kindle ColorSoft and I don't want to repeat myself. All right, so we got all the things set up here, and I gotta say that the update process, even though it was again non-skippable, it went a little bit faster on this one than on the ColorSoft. Maybe because of the complexity of the colors and the color display. Maybe the OS is a little bit smaller, I really don't know, but that's basically what I encountered here. So I got the same 3 documents as before prepared, and we're going to start with an ordinary ebook. So let's open that up. Okay, so opening is relatively quick, and we have the same type of kind of reminders how to use this, which is kind of cool. This is really fast, and it works fairly clean, but we do get to have some ghosting around here. You can probably catch it that we do have some ghosting here. Now, why is that important? Well, unlike other devices on Scribe, like on Remarkable, you are 100% reliant on how the system is going to handle the deghosting, right? So until it decides to kind of deghost everything and kind of clears it up, you're going to have to live with the deghosting because you don't have manual refresh, unlike with books or Supernote or WeWoods or iFlyTech or the likes of those. So that's something that's quite important to test on these devices. We still have the same type of functionality, so I can add a note here, and it will be inserted as an object. And that object can then be either completely deleted, including the note, when you tap on it with a finger and then you go onto the trash can, or you can actually modify the content inside using the eraser on the pen. And once you actually do this, you can also resize it, right? And then the content reflows around it, and then you can just do all that kind of stuff. And if you don't want it anymore, then you get rid of it. And if you do want to add some of your margin text or notes, you can do that. This is by no means a perfect solution or anything like that, but it is a way to kind of make this type of compromise work, where you're working with a dynamic type of content such as EPUBs or ebooks that the Kindle books are. So yeah, hate it or not, that's what you have. As far as the brushes go, well, we have the similar type of stuff. The only thing that's really important here to know is that you don't have a choice of different types of shades of gray. So for example, for a highlighter, so while we had like many different colors of highlighters in the color version or the color soft, here you only have one type of a highlighter, and you can't choose the shade of the gray that's there. On the pen itself, it's only black. So again, you can choose different types of, pens. So we can have a fountain pen, or yeah, we can, but you can't change it while you're doing that stuff. Or you can have felt tip, or a pencil, or a pen, and different thicknesses, and that's it. There's no shades of gray. That's something that you should kind of keep in mind. The performance itself, I think, is really good. Very, very fast. As we've seen, you saw a little flash, that's the deghosting, and you can see how much cleaner it is. But until that happens, which automatically happens at an X amount of actions or page flips, you're going to be stuck with some ghosting if there is some. So now let's zoom in, all the way in, and lock my focus so that you guys can actually see the rendering of the characters. And right at the get-go, you definitely see a clear differentiation in clarity, contrast, and just readability of the fonts of the books on the black and white version versus the color soft, for two very specific reasons. Reason number one is the inherent darkness of the Kaleido panel screen, which, because of the CFA layer, darkens the brightest or the white color of the screen, and therefore the contrast is much lower and the whites are much darker. Here we have whiter whites and blacker blacks, because we no longer have that CFA layer. And second reason for better readability is again that CFA layer, because we don't have it. We don't have anything fuzzying around on top of the content, on top of the text. So you actually get to have full-on clarity. Let me try and get to see how close can we get until the camera says like no more. I think this is close enough so that you can see just how very, very nicely the characters are rendered on this device. So additionally, you can actually see when we're looking at the sides here, just how kind of close to the surface the text actually is. And that also really, really lends itself well for the readability of on this device. Now, all of these examples are in a very, very high lit light box here where I'm recording the videos, but currently we have, it was all but disabled, the Frontlight. So let's see if when we put it on middle, does it have any kind of difference? Not really observable in these conditions, but when we go all the way up, then it kind of tints it up, and then we can see that it's bringing up the brightness of the panel itself. Normally you wouldn't use a Frontlight on a black and white device in these lighting conditions, but it's just something to kind of test out and see. What I do like about the Frontlight here is that it's not really kind of bleeding out or doing anything bad with the colors or the clarity of the image. So that's a good thing. We will check out the Frontlight separately once we're done with all of these tests. So the first document and the readability of EPUBs is actually quite good. Now let's move on to a comic book to see how does this look like. And we're starting to see a similar pattern here, which is the image is very, very good. There's no denying that. But is it me or is this dark? Like with the Kindle Scribe as well. Colorsoft, sorry. This looks a lot darker under these conditions than what I'm used to. I mean, if you take a look at this, and it was one thing that you need to depend on the Frontlight to get the maximum out of the device, to kind of have all of the stuff, you know, normally readable. On a Colorsoft, on a Kindle 3, you can excuse it, you can understand it because of that CFA layer, but now we no longer have that excuse. And this device needs to perform really, really well, but the image quality is excellent. You can definitely see that the image quality is excellent, but it's very dark. And I don't have an option to adjust that. We have dark mode, which is going to flip things around, and it's going to look better, honestly. This actually looks a lot better. So why is the dark mode brighter and nicer than the light mode? I mean, look at this. This one, let's just zoom in so that you can see clearly. I mean, this is really, really dark. Switch to dark mode. That's how it's supposed to be. All right, cool. So it's a totally bugged out software. It's not the screen stack. That's why I'm saying that it's good news, because it's a software issue. And I haven't seen people actually commenting about that, but that's basically the first impression that I got. So, all right, the performance is really quick, very nice and comfortable to read, and fairly clean. All right, so now let's move to the final document. Where is it? There we go, there we are. And we have my usual document here, which I use for testing of the image quality and the ghosting performance. Unlike with the Colorsoft, we do have color banding, very clear color banding happening here. So what about the ghosting? Oh, quite a lot. We didn't have that on the Colorsoft. So that's disappointing. Whoa, we had normal for a second. Did you see that? It was actually normal for a second and then went into the crap part with bad ghosting as well. Yeah, we get the spires and the beautiful places kind of staying here. Yeah, quite a bit more, which is surprising. Definitely, I have to say that that's surprising, because traditionally Kaleido panels are the ones that struggle with the ghosting performance much more than the regular black and white panels, but not in the case of the Kindle Scribe Gen 3. So here, actually, in this iteration with the latest software update that I have, this is not the case. Yeah, this is weird. Definitely there's a bug, because it shows like an image normally and then kind of flashes and gives us this horrible color banding. And I honestly hope that this is a bug, because the OG Kindles never had that. But apropos the darkness, now I remember Colorsoft. Yes, that is the issue. So we had it set to 3 for some reason. And when you set it midway, the contrast is actually quite nice, but the color banding is a problem. So let's see the range of the contrast here. So whoa, not that low. So let's go to 1. Yeah, it tracks with, it's fairly similar to what we had with the Colorsoft. Um, that's some weirdness with the refreshing. That's not normal. But yeah, it washes things out on the same image. And if I go even less contrast, then we're kind of exploding things all around. But that's not a bad thing because we didn't have color banding did it for a second. Because it gives you an option to actually, yeah, adjust for different types of documents, right? And from different types of images. So for me, I think, let's see, one. This looks nice, although a little bit on the washed out side. I think 2 is going to be a nice, yeah, 2 is a very, very nice kind of match here. And this is more in line with what I would expect from, yeah, a display like this. But this color banding thing, you just saw it, the flashy thing. There's a glimpse of it, what it should be, but then it flashes and we get this horrible, ugly looking color banding things that looks broken. I strongly believe this is a bug and it's broken, and hopefully that it's going to be fixed in some of the coming updates, because this is not right. As far as readability goes, I think that the crispness is quite good. This is really thin and kind of, let's say, faint fonts that are rendered very nicely, and I think that it's handling this in a really good way. Readability is definitely better than on the Colorsoft version, which is to be expected, and it is able to handle the contrast stuff quite okay. All right, so that's the reader experience, and now let's continue on from the same notebook that I used on the Kindle Scribe Colorsoft, because I want to see also, yeah, how it translates and also what it does with the different colors, because these were all rendered in a different color, and as you can see, it just translates them into a black color. However, if you are relying on any kind of color differentiation, even grayscale, you unfortunately don't have that, so that's not something that we can do. All right, so let's start a new page, zoom in, and do a writing test. Well, the good news is that the writing latency is uber quick, as it was on the Colorsoft. Overall, the writing feel a little bit too glidey. I personally prefer the writing feel, a little bit more friction, a little bit more raspiness of the Kindle Scribe 1 and 2. This Gen 3 is okay, but it's not glassy or anything like that. It has a pleasant feel. It's just that it's a little bit too slippery for my taste. And there's something about the new pen as well. For those who know, I'm a huge fan of the Kindle Scribe Premium pen from the Gen 1, and that's my main pen that I've been using now for years. And while this is the same design, I think that they've changed the material. Maybe they've changed the material a little bit here, but I find it more slippery and kind of more going around while I'm writing, and it wants to kind of, slip out of my hand as well, and all of that kind of stuff. So that's a little bit weird. Yeah, this is very good. And let's now use a felt tip with... I can swear that the calibration was better. This is way too sensitive. I don't know if you can see, but I'm barely touching here, and it's immediately a huge blob. And if I just touch it, that's like the minimum that I can get, and then I press and it goes from here to there. This is not enough of a differentiation in the pressure sensitivity, and I would expect this to be a lot lower, so that we have a much bigger range of sensitivity, which is something that we do not have. And yeah, if I use the medium brush, then it's like that. So I think that the pressure sensitivity could be calibrated a little bit better. And this is actually surprising, because the old Kindle Scribe used to be really excelling precisely at this point, that you had like excellent writing surface feel, which you do have a good, very good writing feel, but it's not excellent for me. The pen is a little bit more slippery, and yeah, the pressure sensitivity could do with more calibration and a bigger range. So yeah, what do you guys think? I'm kind of left with a little bit of a perplexed and mixed type of impressions. I was actually expecting more. I was hoping for this one to be a lot more, especially because the Colorsoft proved to be, the screen itself at least was quite interesting, but this ordinary one? So here we are testing the Frontlight, and I got the camera settings all completely locked down, white balance, focus, everything, so that I can try and bring you as good and as faithful of a reproduction of how this Frontlight looks like. So right now we're in smack in the middle of intensity and colors, so we see very pleasant hue here and really good uniformity across the board. There's a little bit of darkening here, like we've had on the Colorsoft as well. So let's see the range. If we go to fully warm color, it's good. It's a little bit greenish. I think it was colder on the Kindle Scribe, or maybe it was simply because of the CFA layer. Of course, it's going to look a little bit different. So that is to be expected. And the warm, it looks really nice and amber. Very cool. So let's go back to middle and start increasing the range all the way to maximum. So now right now we're at about 3/4. And then we go all the way to the max. And yes, it's glowing because we're in full dark conditions, but the uniformity is really good. And the light maintains to be good. We've lost that green tint at maximum intensity, so that's good. And the amber stays very much amber-like. So that's pretty cool. That was really intense light, so I'm gonna lower it to something a little bit more manageable, and that looks pretty good. So for my taste, I would have it a little bit on the warmer side. Well, maybe not that much. And then back to middle, and the range is fairly high, but you do have like these big steps between, especially here, like boom. This is a huge step right here. That doesn't feel too uniform to me. So and now he's like whoa, dropping really badly. So the refinement of the steps is not there. Maybe it could benefit from 36 steps instead of 24. So that would have been maybe nicer to kind of see. Overall, like with the Colorsoft, the Frontlight on the Kindle Scribe Gen 3 is quite good. So we got our Kindle Scribe black and white Gen 3 with the Frontlight. If my impressions were a mixed bag for the Colorsoft, at least there was like a whole new thing that it was bringing to the table. So it had a little bit of an easier job. I think Colorsoft had a little bit of an easier job because it was bringing colors to the table. So automatically it was differentiating itself from the previous versions. That's not the case with this one. And in my opinion, this is the one that's most important out of the 3 versions that the new Kindle Scribe has. Unfortunately, I don't think it delivered. Why? Well, you've seen the ghosting. Yes, it has lower it has the same stack, so you have lower height between this. Yes, the front light is nice. Yes, it's 11-inch screen. Yes, all of those things are there. But for me personally, this is a subjective side of things, same as in Colorsoft, the new writing feel, I am not a huge fan of it. The new pen, while it's nice that this time it actually matches the color, unlike on the Colorsoft, where you have this glaring white against the Fig or the graphite color, it's just like, what the hell are you doing? Here we have a nice matching kind of thing, but the writing feel, it's a little bit too slippery. The slipperiness of the pen, they've changed something about it, so now it wants to slip out of the hand. So that's also like, okay, we're moving in an opposite direction from the previous versions. The design itself, I really like, same as on Colorsoft. I love the fact that they've changed, that we now have perfectly equal bezels, so you can use it in any orientation that you want. It's thinner, it's lighter, so that's kind of nice, but it's $100 more. So it needs to deliver not on par with the previous generation. It needs to deliver more. And I don't think that it does. Other than Amazon artificially capping and not allowing 2024 Kindle Scribe version to actually have the Google Drive and OneDrive implementation, if that decision still stands, it was a couple of months ago, it was still an announcement that Kindle made, Amazon made, that Google Drive and OneDrive is only going to be for 2025 and onwards. So if that is still valid, well, that's artificially basically handicapping the users who have bought a brand new device basically just about barely 2 years ago and not having the latest updates and functionalities for no good reason. Because there's absolutely no question that those devices are absolutely able to do that. There's nothing about it. It's just your server connection and how it communicates. So it's a conscious choice and a deliberate limitation, basically forcing the users, oh, if you want this minimal amount of convenience and functionality out of your platform, you're going to have to buy one of these. And if that wasn't bad enough, then you have to pay $100 more for it, and the image quality is not going to be my first impression, at least. Again, first impression video. I will measure it out. I have the measurements of the previous Kindles. We will be able to quantify and objectively measure and put these guys against the previous generations and see where they actually stand. But my own personal first impression is that, yes, it's sharp, yes, it's nice, but ghosting is worse. You don't have manual refresh option to kind of get rid of it, so you're gonna wait for the device to actually go through it. And then there was the document image performance, which I genuinely think there's something wrong with it. Simply because there were those instances of 2 flashes, like we had like a fraction of a second of a nice image without color banding and proper color differentiation and dithering, only for it to flash and then give us the really terrible deghosting and really terrible color banding. And the second reason why I think it's a bug, Colorsoft doesn't exhibit that kind of behavior. And underneath it, both of these panels are supposed to be exactly the same because they have those black and white electrophoretic cells that are moving up and down. The only difference is that the Colorsoft has a CFA layer on top and of course different calibration in order to produce pigments of colors. That different calibration, that I think is something that's going on here. And just to clarify, this one was updated, both of them were updated to the latest version that's currently available for these devices, because you don't have an option, you're forced to do it. So I don't know what's going on, but my first impressions and the performance that I got out of this one is not satisfactory and is actually disappointing, because it's not as good as the previous Kindle. And this is the one that, in my opinion at least, is the most important one, because that's what the majority of readers are going to be looking for. Kind of disappointing. What about you guys? Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you in the next video. Bye!